Hello, everybody. Welcome to your Sunday episode of The Expendable Show. I'm your host, The Expendable. So I almost didn't make it back in time. I was watching the Colts game at Miller's Ale House, and that was over in Fayetteville, Georgia. I always have to remember because all the neighborhoods kind of merge into each other in Metro Atlanta. So I always forget where I'm at sometimes. You'll be in within 3 blocks, you'll be in Jonesboro, Riverdale, and Fayetteville, all right there. So if you like my show, subscribe, and ding the bell, please. It helps my show grow, and we've had an exponential amount of followers jump in lately. Thank you, everyone who has been watching my shorts. I think we had 20,000 views in shorts in the last 5 days. That's pretty good for this channel. So this episode is brought to you by Gatsby Trading Solutions. We're going to be back at work this week, making money and working hard, trying to make the earth more safe and climate friendly, kind of. Not really. I'm just making money. That's what I do. So the very Republican thing for me to say. So let's get into our statistics this week, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of the show. So we this week, this is the lowest average gas price that I've seen in quite some time. The average price of gas is $3 even. So President Trump is getting it done on the gas prices. So I think we're going to see him go below 3 on the average. I think that's going to happen. So we'll see what happens. Now, there's a lot of talk about Jerome Powell getting replaced as the chair of the Fed, and I think that's going to be something that happens after the first of the year. It needs to happen. Jerome Powell's not being aggressive enough with the mortgage rates. So I don't agree with how he's doing it. President Trump doesn't agree. Scott Bessent doesn't agree. So I think he's purposefully holding back the housing market. But the 30-year fixed mortgage rate average is 5.99%. So it's still, it's better, but we're still too close to that 6% mark. Trump's approval rating is at 42.7%. The Dow Jones closed on Friday at $47,716.42. Democrat Party approval rating, 34%. Okay, so let's get into the big stuff. So we have the National Guard. We had two of our National Guard soldiers shot this past week, the day before Thanksgiving, and it's been the big story across the country, and rightfully so. It's a big deal. So let's get into what we know. So the latest update is the suspect in the Washington, D.C. National Guard shooting has been identified as Rahmanullah Lakanwal. They don't make it easy on me. A 29-year-old Afghan national. One guardsman, Sarah Beckstrom, she was 20 years old. She has died as a result of her wounds. While Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, he's 24 years old, remains in critical condition. Lakenwall has been charged with first-degree murder and faces additional charges. This isn't going to be good for him. We'll get into how and why of this. So the attack took place on November 6th, just blocks from the White House near Farragut West Metro Station. Lakenwall allegedly ambushed 2 West Virginia National Guard members, firing 10 to 15 rounds with a revolver. One guardsman returned fire, wounding the suspect and ending the attack. So it sounds like there was a little bit of a firefight. Unfortunately, Sarah Beckstrom succumbed from her injuries. She ended up dying on Thanksgiving Day, while Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, he underwent surgery and he remains in critical condition. He's being described as he's fighting for his life, which I pray that he makes it through. So the suspect, he entered the U.S. in 2021 under Operation Allies Welcome, a program for Afghan nationals who assisted U.S. forces. So there's a correlation here. He recently was granted asylum in April of 2025. So reports suggested he struggled with mental health issues, isolation, and unemployment after resettling in Washington State. So he went all the way from Washington State to Washington, D.C. Now, why? I'm not sure. So he previously served in Afghanistan as a CIA-backed Zero unit. So this guy has ties to our CIA. So I have several issues with that, and we'll get into it here in a second. So he was initially charged with assault and weapons possession. It's been now upgraded to first-degree murder after Beckstrom's death. Prosecutors say the attack was premeditated. Hey, what's up, G bro? Attorney General Pam Bondi has indicated the death penalty will be pursued. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem stated authorities believe Lakenwall was radicalized by the United States, or while in the United States. President Trump condemned the attack as a terrorist ambush and ordered 500 additional National Guard troops to D.C. The administration has paused asylum decisions pending stricter vetting. Debate continues over whether vetting failures under prior administrations contributed to the suspect's entry. So the shooting... Hey, Rachel. So the shooting has heightened tensions over immigration and refugee vetting, which officials pointed fingers across administrations. So that's something I'm going to talk about too, about where we go now. So communities that supported Afghan refugees are grappling with the tragedy, noting Lakenwall's erratic behavior and isolation had raised concerns long before the attack. The case is expected to reshape asylum policy and may influence broader national security measures. So some of the reactions, I always like to look and see how people react when these big stories come out. So I do a little research and see what people are saying so I can have a better idea what everybody's angle is. So on Truth Social, President Trump wrote, "The animal that shot the 2 National Guard guardsmen will pay a very steep price. God bless our great National Guard and all of our military and law enforcement." He emphasized solidarity with the victims and their families. I can agree with that statement. I think he did a good job. He announced that Sarah Beckstrom had died, calling her an incredible person and outstanding in every single way. President Trump referred to the shooter as a savage monster and described the incident as a terrorist attack. He criticized the Biden administration for allowing Afghan refugees into the United States under Operation Allies Welcome, saying he went cuckoo. It happens too often with these people. So the press, when CBS reporter Nancy Cordes pressed him about vetting, Trump snapped. Trump said, "Because they let him in. Are you stupid? Are you a stupid person?" I mean, I think if I was president, I would be very emotional if one single one of my soldiers died. I would be irate, and I would have a no bullshit policy when it comes to dealing with questions about that. So I Trump's compassion and his fire towards answering that question. It may seem, harsh, and a lot of the left media is labeling it as harsh and him trying to bully the media. But I don't want not a single soldier to die under my watch. So I can sympathize with how President Trump feels. If I was in his shoes, I would feel the same way. So Trump He went on to say on social media broadened his rhetoric. Okay, so this is some more stuff that's being told about Trump. Said on Thanksgiving night, Trump broadened his rhetoric, targeting immigration communities, including Somalis in Minnesota, claiming refugees are the leading cause of social dysfunction in America. He pledged to pause migration from countries of concern and expanded deportations. When asked if he would attend Beckstrom's funeral, Trump said he hadn't decided, but he boasted. He said, "I love West Virginia. You know, I won West Virginia by one of the biggest margins of any president anywhere." Facts, he did. Trump's comments mixed condolences and condemnation with sharp attacks on his immigration policy. His rhetoric has drawn criticism for being inflammatory and dismissive, especially towards journalists and immigrant communities. Supporters argue he has heightened national security risks tied to refugee settlements. The incident is now a flashpoint in debates over vetting, asylum, and military deployment in U.S. cities. So naturally, the left is saying all kinds of ridiculous things because that's what they do. For one, there's a lot of finger pointing. Well, it's the Biden administration did this. Oh, well, you guys didn't vet him as the Trump administration. You guys gave him asylum. Okay, so let's forget about the finger pointing. It's happened. Now, how do we move forward? Now, I agree with President Trump that we need to sit down and really clamp down on our immigration policies. We need to be vetting everyone. I think this is something that he's been trying to do, that he's getting resistance. How many more situations involving our immigrants are we going to put up with before everybody gets involved and says, hey, you know, these people don't quite understand how we do things around here? And that may sound like an insensitive way of putting it, but that's exactly how that's the only way I want to put it. You know, when is enough going to be enough? Like, we have a way of doing things here in the United States. We have our own American culture. The Black community has their way of doing things. The Hispanic community has their way of doing things. America as a whole does things a lot differently than some of these other countries in their cultures. It's the same thing as, you know, when you have the African immigrants come here. And if you haven't noticed, a lot of the Africans immigrants don't get along that well with the African Americans, because the culture divide is so big. So, and that's just being real. That's exactly, I've had thousands of conversations about this, that there is a dissent there between the American culture versus the African culture. So when you have people from other countries coming here, they're not adapting to our culture. They're not adapting to our way of doing things. And so it creates confusion, and it creates frustration and anger. And because we're not going to just, you know, say, hey, go ahead and bring all your culture over here and we'll figure it out. No, you're in America. You're in the United States of America. You're coming here as our guest. That's what your visa means. It means you are a guest here that needs to adapt to our way of doing things. This isn't how, you know, how the Democrats want it to be. They want us to assimilate to everybody's different way of doing things. It's impossible for us to do that. For one, it's virtually impossible. I cannot sit down and understand the Persian culture or Islam. I can't understand the Greek culture. I can't understand the Chinese culture. I only know the American culture, and I know the groups of people that I hang out with. I know how they do things, and so I just am around people that I kind of vibe with. And I think that's something that they come over and they don't know how to vibe with our way of doing things. So they isolate themselves to their like communities, which is fine. You want to be around people that, you're comfortable being around and you feel safe being around. But at the same time, if you have a radical ideology in that community, you're going to breed more radical ideology. And that's just kind of how it goes. So I think we have to do a better job of knowing who's in our country. What are they a part of? That's the big one. This guy ended up having a bunch of ties to all kinds of stuff. Now, I was reading an article that James Rosen from Newsmax did on a report that he did. Now, I actually have talked to James Rosen a few times. We actually didn't like each other at first, but then we kind of came to some common grounds and we communicate respectfully. I actually like him. He's a good reporter. So he reported that Rahmanullah Lakenwal, the Afghan national charged in Wednesday's shooting of 2 National Guard troops near the White House, served for more than a decade as a mercenary for U.S. forces in wartime Afghanistan. So he's fought with our soldiers in Afghanistan. They said that his mission was to kill Taliban fighters alongside American troops. So he's anti-Taliban. Okay, that sounds okay. We don't really get along with the Taliban. We paid him a decent salary and kept him for 10 years. So apparently he was doing a good job. But the problem is this guy's done nothing but war for 10 years. He's done nothing but kill for 10 years. So did anybody take the time to reintegrate him mentally back into society? Probably not, because when he came over into our country, he got lost in the immigration system. So this guy was basically a walking PTSD. It was just a matter of time. And that's an issue. So FBI Director Kash Patel said the Bureau is investigating Lakenwal's connections to partner agencies in Afghanistan. It was a reference to a confirmation earlier from CIA Director John Ratcliffe that the Afghan National collaborated with U.S. forces as a member of the Kandahar Strike Group, an elite counterterrorism unit equipped, trained, and commanded by CIA officers during a long-running war. U.S. intelligence officials told Newsmax that records show Lakenwal began working with CIA commanders as early as 2011 and continued conducting lethal missions until the chaotic U.S. withdrawal in August 2021. The Biden-era program that resettled 200,000 Afghans who assisted U.S. forces and feared reprisals from the Taliban takeover. Now, this all happened at one time, if you remember correctly, from the Afghan botched withdrawal that Biden just sloppily did with all the worthless generals that he had. 200,000 people at one time coming into this country is going to be chaotic. I'll guarantee you the proper vetting didn't happen. I'll guarantee you that they just kind of took them all to a checkpoint and said, hey, here, fill out these papers, and then we're going to take you to another place. And then we're going to figure out where we're going to house you. Rachel, I 100% agree with you on that. And I think that, and I know that your brother could probably speak on that better than probably both of us, but it's a difficult situation when you're dealing with coalition forces, especially in wartime areas, because we know that there's a common enemy. That's why we team up. However, the principles and the ethical boundaries between the United States Code of War and, let's use this as an example, the Afghanistan warrior are two different things. They have an ideology. We have an ideology. They have a culture. We have a culture, and they don't align. And so as we may work together to defeat the Taliban, which I'm on their list. The Taliban does not like me because I wrote one article in a publication in Pakistan that they put me on their they don't like me list. So add me to another list. Whoop-de-doo, Basil. What does it all mean? But that's a very, very touchy situation. And I agree with you, Rachel. I think we should be very suspicious in a use of the word that you use, probably the most appropriate. We should be suspicious of coalition forces. And we should, especially with the private sector, because the private sector is a whole other different animal. I'm familiar. I'm becoming more and more educated with the private sector. My brother-in-law works in the private sector. I'm not going to tell you for which company, because it's one of the big dangerous ones. But it's a very touchy subject because they don't have the same set of rules our military has, which is why they use private sector, why they use defense contractors, is because then they can claim, the United States government can claim plausible deniability and say, hey, it's not our troops, it's somebody else. It's the private military groups. It's not our fault. We didn't mean to do this. But as you know, when you look at groups like Triple Canopy, which used to be She Services, which before that was whatever, Blackstone or whatever, that got in all that trouble over in Afghanistan, which is the CEO is Erik Prince, which is the sister of Betsy DeVos, which was Trump's first term Secretary of Education. So Trump has a tie there with Triple Canopy, which is, they're one of my favorite ones. I would work for them in a heartbeat, but it's neither here nor there. So here's what Kash Patel goes on to say. He says, it's one thing to vet a guy to be your mercenary. It's another to vet him to be your neighbor. And I think that's an excellent way to contrast it is, yes, it's a different set of vetting to bring someone in to be the guy who's going to kill beside you. And it's another thing to vet the guy to be your neighbor. So that's two different sets of vetting. Is he safe for the community or is he safe for war? So that's two different extremes. I know, Rachel. I'm suspicious of the one your brother works for. Sorry. There's too many politicians that get money from them. So, I mean, they do good work. It's just they own a lot of politicians. That's the only real bad thing I got to say about them. Their technology is state of the art there. So another big news this week, Ohio State has finally broke the losing streak to Michigan. Hallelujah. So it was a big weekend for me. It was exciting. Ohio State's defense, usually I don't cover sports on here, but I'm a huge Buckeye fan, so I'm going to talk about the Buckeyes. It was awesome seeing the Ohio State defense completely shut down Michigan's offense. We knocked out their running back at the beginning of the game. Their quarterback, Mr. All 5-star greatest quarterback ever, he couldn't throw the football to save his life. He had to depend on his legs, and that wasn't enough. Ohio State's defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia, orchestrated the perfect defensive scheme to counter that Michigan had. They couldn't do anything. So I was very excited and happy about that. So now Ohio State plays Indiana Saturday for the Big Ten championship. So that should be, I think both teams are probably already clinched to be in the college football playoff. Neither team has lost. So somebody's going to leave there with one loss. The game's being played at Lucas Oil, where my Colts play. We didn't play good there today, unfortunately. But so Indiana's going to kind of have home field advantage, but you know how Ohio State does it. We bring an army with us when we go to games, so it should be a pretty exciting game. Two quarterbacks are Heisman Trophy candidates. It should be a big game. Indiana puts up big points, so we'll see if Ohio State can shut down that offense. Monster. I should have a Monster sponsorship. I tried. They denied me. They said that my show isn't skateboarding and surfing. I was like, come on, man. I drink Monster like it's my job. I literally only drink Monster, which I know my dad's going to go, this stuff's going to kill you. It probably will, but I'll like it. So now we're going to cover a couple cases that I've been looking at in Kentucky that one of them is a kind of a cold case, and the other one is a case that I believe that they're trying to brush under the rug. And so this is the case. It involves Charles Taylor. Well, this one's not really Kentucky, but where it's at is on the Kentucky-West Virginia border, like where I talk a lot about Pike County. On the other side of the border into West Virginia from Pike County is Mingo County. So I talk a lot about Mingo County. However, this one didn't happen in Mingo County, I don't believe. It's in Charleston, West Virginia. So this is based upon the information from USSN.com. It involves the murder of Charles Taylor. This happened September 24th of, the article is written September 24th of 2024. So what we have is the West Virginia State Police is still actively investigating this case. It's the mysterious disappearance of Charles Chuck Taylor. He was a man from Charleston who went missing 3 years ago. So he went missing in 2021. He went missing from Mingo County, West Virginia. Despite the passage of time, the authorities and Taylor's family firmly believe that he was murdered. However, the lack of a body has presented challenges in making an arrest and finding closure for the grieving family. There's more to the story, and there's a lot of well-known more to the story that we're going to discuss. Another news outlet, WCHS-TV, put out an article that had a little bit more details. It said troopers in the man's family believe he was murdered, but the inability to locate a body delayed the arrest for the family's desire for closure. He disappeared September 18th of 2020. His family believes he was murdered in a house on Vincent Street in Williamson, which is in Mingo County, which is it's the town on the other side of the border from Pike County. It literally, you could throw a stone across the river and hit Williamson from Pike County. They believe that he was murdered on Vincent Street, and he was dismembered, and then his body was hidden. Taylor's family is marking the anniversary with sadness, frustration, and anger. His sister Chastity was quoted. She said, "It's been very hard. There's a lot of feelings of anger, grief, and with it being today, our feelings are very raw." Leading up to his disappearance, Taylor, he's legally blind. Okay. So this just adds to the kind of the mystery of the situation. He's from Charleston. He was in Williamson for a drug rehab program, because that area has a lot of drug rehab programs. His girlfriend reported him missing. No trace of him has surfaced over 3 years. The family said Williamson police may have allegedly mishandled evidence. I have been following this sister for quite some time, and I don't think she knows that I've been paying attention. She is saying some very, very strong worded things about what's happened to her brother. And we're going to talk about those things. That she claims that the police mishandled the evidence, but no human blood was detected by the crime lab. State police in February 2021, troopers searched locations in West Virginia and Kentucky for a body and even served 16 court-ordered searches on social media. Those searches were efforts to find videos that had reportedly contained key evidence and were unsuccessful. So Charles Taylor's stepmother, and I've been paying attention to her. This is where I found this quote. She said that I'm just wanting them to arrest the people that did this, and they know who did it. The Williamson Police Department and the West Virginia State Highway Patrol knows who did it. State police confirmed that they developed persons of interest in the apparent murder of Charles Taylor, but they concede that a lack of a body is making it difficult to advance the case. Trooper said the case has been complicated because some key players and witnesses are unhoused, transient, and difficult to locate. Taylor was also experiencing homelessness before he went missing. Now, these cases bother me because, I did get, me and my friend T, we went out and gave away, some food for Thanksgiving to the homeless in Clayton County and in Fulton County here in Georgia. And I was able to see firsthand. I'd never done anything like that before. So I got to see firsthand what some of these people are going through and hear some of their stories and and how they're either down on their luck or they're trying to, kick a drug habit or whatever. It's a hard thing to do. And there's literally nobody out there trying to help these people. They've got shelters and stuff, but most of them are if you come to Atlanta, there is not enough shelter space for the amount of homeless people. The overpass over by 285 and 400, 285 is the loop around Atlanta and 400 will take you all the way to South Carolina. The people are literally, they have encampment cities underneath that overpass. Hundreds of homeless people live there. It's insane. And they're all cold. When we went out and gave the food out, it was, 40 degrees. They were freezing. It was cold. I gave them everything that I had in my car. I had a blanket. I gave that out. And so for somebody to target somebody going through something like this, it makes me mad because this guy's trying to get on his feet. He's in drug rehab. He's blind. He's homeless. He's trying to find a way. He's got family that cares about him, apparently. And somebody did this to him. And they're looking for people to come forward. And I'm hoping that with this, we can get people to come forward. And I feel bad because if I had aired this on TikTok, I would have gotten probably 100 tips by now. But some asshole wanted to take my TikTok down, so I can't help anybody anymore. So right here. If you have information on this case, contact the West Virginia State Police. That's going to be the easiest way. Apparently, he had $450 on him that he was missing. He was robbed, apparently, is what his sister's saying. He was black, okay? So you're in a dominant white area, very, very a lot of racial overtones, like we've talked in another case there in Pike County, where the young man punched a guy because he said something racist towards his biracial girlfriend. This is the kind of area you're in. And so for this to happen, there was a woman that apparently was bragging to some people that got back. And she said, this N-word's body is in 6 pieces and they will never find him. And you know what this woman does now? She's an LPN in Logan County and works with a lot of minorities. So I'm going to track this lady down and I'm going to track the rest of the story down and I'm going to figure out who did it. and somebody's going to go to prison. So be forewarned, I'm coming. The next case, Christopher Dale Gregory. This is a cold case. This is hopefully we can get something out of here. This is from Russell Springs, Kentucky. He's been missing since January 31st of 2006. He's a male, 21 years old at the time he was missing. He was 6'2", 180 pounds. Here's a picture of him. So Gregory was last seen at approximately 9:30 p.m. on January 31st, 2006 at a friend's residence in Russell Springs, Kentucky. He was en route to meet someone at the Key Village in Russell Springs. He has never been heard from again. Gregory's green two-door 1997 Pontiac Grand Am was located the same day as his disappearance in the parking lot of a bowling alley in the vicinity of Lakeway Drive and US 127 in Russell Springs. This was not far from where he was last seen. So they have a perimeter. There's a perimeter. And I know these cold cases, this case is almost 20 years old. So the amount of forensics evidence is probably going to be gone. But what we can do is find tips. And that's what we aim to find. And if any of you ever watched my TikTok page, the tips pour in. Just from my TikTok page, each one of these note cards is a tip. And this isn't even all of them. This is just the stack that I got on my desk that I got to go through. So there's so many tips out there on some of these missing people. So I'm hoping to collect some for this young man. There's been numerous rumors about Gregory's disappearance, including that he was abducted at gunpoint or that drugs were involved in his case. None of the stories have been confirmed. Authorities stated they believe 4 suspects were involved in his disappearance, and at least 6 other people know what happened to him. His case remains unsolved. Now, I chose this case simply because this is a report from the police. So they're saying that there are at least 6 people that know what happened to him, 4 people involved. So there are people out there that know what happened. I need that information. We need to figure out what happened to this young man and get this concluded so his family can have peace, so they can put this young man's memory to rest. And that's what we need to do. So those of you who watch my show, watch my TikTok page, which will be back here pretty soon. Bring the tips and we'll figure it out and hopefully bring some closure. Now, I have in my new transition from being a solo person into turning this into a team, the Expendable Show is now a team of people. I no longer own the Expendable Show. Somebody else does. I'm just the face. So we do have a tip email now, which is theexpendableshow@gmail.com. I'm going to put it down in the comment section so everyone will know where you can submit your tips. So we're going to continue to plug forward and try to do good work and try to bring some of these cold cases to light and hopefully get some closure, because that's what we do on the Expendable Show, especially those of you coming over from my TikTok page. We're going to continue to do it here until I get my TikTok page back up and running, under the new management. So we're going to do that. Lots of big things. My nonprofit, hopefully we'll have that up and running by January or February. Then we'll be able to make this whole thing big, and we'll create accountability for the corruption. And they're not going to be able to kick me off of everything, because I'm going to have a whole team full of people. So it's coming. Everybody just be safe out there. I know we're a little short today. I actually thought I was going to go long today, but it's going to be a little short today. Everybody be safe. Pay attention to where your family are, where your family is, especially if you're in like the Kentucky area. People disappear way too often there. So we want to make sure that we're looking out for our loved ones, and, bring the tips. Let's do something productive. If Andy Bashir doesn't want to clean out his state, I'll clean it out for him. That's all I got for you. I'm out. Peace.